Hello.
Hey.
Hey. Hi, this is LeJune with LeJune Singleton LLC, Fitness, Health, Nutrition, and Wellness Podcast. Today, I would like to welcome vegan health coach, podcaster, health and wellness advocator and educator, founder of Sovereign Eats, Moksha. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Julie, for having me. Thank you very much. I appreciate that you reached out and asked that I join you on here just to share with your audience. Thank
you. And so many people have questions when it comes to becoming a vegan and thinking about vegan and plant-based, and we know plant-based is thrown out everywhere. Burger King has a plant-based burger. If you Google it, it's not really plant-based because it has fillers from meat, things like that. People have questions when it comes to plant-based, but they don't really understand it. And I just thought you would be the perfect person to explain that because this is what you do. Can you give a background on yourself?
Yes, so I was born and reared in Grenada. Grenada is one of the smallest islands of the Caribbean, southernmost part of the Caribbean. And growing up in the Caribbean, the typical diet is meat, of course, and lots of roots, veggies, and so on. And so, that's what I was exposed to. So I was exposed to vegan, or what is now called plant-based lifestyle after taking a nutrition class. And at 14, I decided, okay, forget the meat. So at that point, and it was strategic because at that point I had severe menstrual cramping and I couldn't figure out why. And, my doctor gave me something and I just took it. I was a teen then, so, the reckless sometimes. So all of that influenced my sticking to and consistency with a plant-based lifestyle because I was able to receive a lot of relief from pain and so on just based off of transitioning to a plant-based diet. So it helped me based on increasing nutritional content, but it also removing the meat, removing the dairy, and focusing on greens and other, nutrient-based, nutrient-rich and nutrient-potent foods from plants, it actually helped to release and relieve all of the pain. I mean, I would have days where I'm cramping on the floor and I'm almost like in semi paralysis, So yeah, and the change and the shift reduced the bleeding, it reduced the pain tremendously. So with that, upon moving here, I decided to shift into a raw vegan life because I was just like, why not? Let's just take another step and get closer to where the healing really is. And so I was introduced to a raw vegan life by a raw vegan family who was transitioning from a fruitarian lifestyle. And they taught me everything that I know, everything that I needed to know about transitioning properly and maintaining that nutritional balance and nutritional variety as well too. And I realized, okay, I really like supporting people and helping people transition and understanding the nuances between meal planning and, selecting foods and also gut health and gut, some people need, some of us need to, how should I say, recover our gut health in a sense,
right,
because from eating certain things for so long damage all of the microbiota. So that all of that is intertwined in my history, just realizing how much what little I know can support others and help them transition as well. That has been like the foundation I stand on. I always want to help I always want to have my 2 cents and I want to give it. So, yeah.
So speaking on that, I always consult with like family and friends on my podcast what questions they may have. And one of the questions is that you touched on the transition process of going from eating meat to potentially becoming vegan. What does that process look like for someone who's considering that?
Yes, that process begins it with purpose, right? I know if when I say it, one of the first things I do when someone gets a consult from me, I send them I think it's what, 22 questions, thorough questions. It's a comprehensive questioning because if we really want to transition and we really want healing, then the the place it begins is here, and in here is sits purpose. What is the intention that you have? And so the very first thing you have to say is, what is driving to create this change? Am I a bandwagoner? Do I just want to get on this healthy plant-based thing? Do I just want to, open up a pack of meat alternative because and recreate the same burger, same amount of fats? I just want a plant-based because everyone's doing it, or do I really want heart health, gut health, womb health? So it's the purpose. That's the driving force. And that's something that has to be written down somewhere and etched in the mind. That's first. And the next step would be to actually identify what's in the pantry.
Mm.
What do you have in your pantry? Like I like to work with people and do pantry makeovers. You could do it yourself. Whatever is in your pantry, if it's in a can, remove it. No, I am not a person who says you can't have canned. There are certain items that I do enjoy that are canned, and there is no other way. Considering the COVID pandemic,
Mm.
having emergency food supplies, which is another topic that I love to talk about, having emergency food supplies and making sure it's stacked and you have all of these things there and prepared is important. So canned goods are a benefit, but for everyday consumption, that's something that we need to consider removing from our diet. Things that are in plastics and tubes and so on, we need to make sure that they're not sitting, or food isn't sitting in aluminum. So that's the next step, right? And I hope this is helpful, right? This is just
Yeah.
step two, and we haven't even talked about food yet, right? But removing those items and making sure you have a clean, fresh start is critical, because I'm going to also talk about something that's not related to even food. It's what's the driving force behind our nature, the
Mm.
driving force behind how we function. It's the subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind predominantly functions in, automatic mode. So
Right.
if you have been eating a certain way and enjoying certain types of food for a very long time, the triggers are there. We see the food industry. So much of this topic is so intertwined in everything else. June is not
Yes.
even, but
Yes.
the, the, we see companies take advantage of cueing systems like smells and taste and color. And we think it's just the children, we think it's just the youth, but it's us too. The subconscious mind is accustomed to programming. We can drive down the highway and listen to a podcast, the June Singleton's podcast, and make a left and listen to the map, give us directions as well, and we're doing all of them without thinking.
Right.
The reason I can drive down the highway is because and do all of these other things is because the subconscious mind works on automatic function. So when it comes to selecting food and selecting the food we want or we think we want, the subconscious mind goes right back into its old patterns. So making sure that we don't include or remove stuff from the pantry that will be like a queuing system, right? The things that you like, that's a queuing system. The brain will recognize the can before you could even read it. That's how quick the brain is.
Yeah.
So making sure to pull those old items that are old triggers from the pantry, removing them and totally getting rid of them is important. Put them in maybe you want to add them to your emergency kit and lock them in a box somewhere. And we're finding a replacement, not just alternatives, but a replacement for some of the foods and the items, fresh replacements. Um, that's another thing. Finding a market that you can go to have access to fresh fruits and veggies. Because the most important thing when you're transitioning to a plant-based or even a live food or raw diet, or lifestyle, I like to say, you have to make sure that you have your resource. If you don't have a garden yourself, you have to find one, a market that is reliable, the quality, they have high quality, and they have a wide variety. And I say wide variety because once you transition to plant-based, you're going to find that maybe you have issues digesting food, but that's because the gut microbiota doesn't have a wide variety of prebiotics. So consuming a wide variety, finding jicama, carrots are the only carrot-looking food that you can find. That's a root, parsnips, jicama, celery roots. It's so ugly, it's not even funny, but it is so good for you. Just finding some place you can walk into. And some of the Asian markets are very helpful for that because they have a wide variety. You can find burdock roots, which is found in fresh form. They look really, really long, very long, brown, and very white on the inside. They look like a white carrot. They pack a mineral punch, and if you need to flush your system, they're called a diuretic. So it will help you to urinate very often. But what that does is it helps to flush the blood and flush the system very quickly too. So that's the third thing I wanted to say. Just finding yourself, and let me know if I'm missing anything, or keep me back on track, because some of the topics, some of the questions can take us down rabbit holes, and I tend to go down those rabbit holes sometimes. Yes, but that's the other thing, finding yourself a market where there's a wide variety, very important. And I'll also say, when it comes to those who enjoy meat and have been consuming meat, now we get to the part where it requires discipline. That's why the beginning stage of this for me, for your audience, it would be the purpose, and the purpose is directly connected to the discipline, or the discipline connected to the purpose. If you do want to transition from meat, you can wean yourself off of it. That becomes the next step. So the next step would be, okay, I'll have meatless Mondays. I know that's popular. Now, maybe I want to have throwback Thursdays, where you actually do give yourself an opportunity to have one type of meat, right? But that's the throwback. That's it. And there are no other days where you consume meat. Or maybe you do want to balance your plant-based, increase it, but reduce the meat consumption to probably 20%. That's an option too. And I say that because although I am vegan, and the community that I'm a part of supports us being plant-based, I do understand body composition is very important, and our bodies vary differently. I mean, we all don't have the same blood type.
Right.
And so eating for your blood type is one option. Ayurvedics is another option. There's so many different lifestyles and perspectives and lenses to look at food from. But you have to catch a rhythm with your body, and you have to work along with your holistic practitioner or whoever is coaching you or working with you, so you know what's best for you. So some people need that. Some people have to have that meat that's introduced. I actually was having a conversation with a brother once, and he said if he's not tearing into something, it makes him feel as if there's a reducing of masculinity. So I was like, okay, like, why not? There has to be some sort of strength when it comes to having to chew down on something and pull it apart and so on. So maybe that's the case. I think that type of conversation and dialogue is open when it comes to being exposed to food, because although I was also raw for many years, I am not an advocate for everyone to go raw. Because again, if your gut has not been built up to actually break down and assimilate certain raw foods, it's going to be a waste. You're going to have what they call it, expensive urine. Like I heard someone say that before about taking supplements, because your body can't really assimilate or digest it. So I think those are some things that your audience can take into consideration when it comes to transitioning. And I have a few more. If you want me to keep going, I can keep going.
Well, as you talked about the gentleman, feels like he has to that masculinity. One of the things that I saw in the research is men that consume large amount of meat, it actually brings down their testosterone level, as well as causing Cushing syndrome, which is also occurs in women as well from consuming a large amount of meat. And that's the thing about Americans. We'll have all this meat on the plate, we'll have a large amount of carbs, and we'll have this much vegetables, and we're not really getting that essential nutrients from the vegetables, or we even overcook the vegetables, which takes away the nutrients. So what are your thoughts when it comes to cooking, vegetables, um, where sometimes we are taking all the nutrients out of those vegetables?
You know, food is a science. Food is literally a science, and our creator was very strategic in making us and in making the food that surrounds us. And before I even start to respond to you, I'll jump on the fact that if you walk out of wherever you are right now, or wherever you live, rather, if you open the door and walk the door and walk out right now and look at the plants around you, you may not think anything of them, but they're considering you in this large system of universe and environments and the interconnectivity between plants and humans and plants and animals. The plants that grow around us are literally growing in response to our needs, right? Last spring, I walked out. I kind of shifted into a new area, and when I did, I walked out and I noticed there was forsythia growing everywhere. That was exactly around the time the pandemic became the one thing on everyone's mind. When I looked up forsythia, they're beautiful. I broke the branches, I put them in my home space. I looked up forsythia. Forsythia is excellent and is used and can be used as a lung, um, it helps to relieve lung issues. So if you're having issues with breathing, forsythia is one of the plants that you can use. You can use the flower for that. So my overall point is just, when it comes to plants, they're very responsive to our needs, very responsive to our needs. And I think that that's something that we can take into consideration, how responsive plants can be. Um, when it comes to the consumption of meats and plants and so on, remind me of the question, please, because I feel like
It's okay. So
uh,
when it comes to vegetables, we either overcook it, we're taking the nutrients out. When it comes to salads, people are drenching the salad with salad dressing, which is taking away the whole nutritional aspect of the salad. So when it comes to those things, how should foods really be prepared when it comes to making sure that you're getting the nutrients? Because a lot of people who are considering becoming plant-based, they're concerned about getting the vitamins and the nutrients, but if you're cooking it too much, you're stripping away all those things.
thank you. As soon as you said it, I was like, oh yes, right, the nutrients and how to prep them. So yes, that point about the plants that grow around us is really important to take advantage of them. And I say that again because sometimes we go with imported foods or fruits or veggies rather than considering what's grown here is specific to the environment here and it aids us because we live in this particular environment. Um, in terms of the food, how to food prep, food prepping is a science, food is a science. And so there's so many different ways. Let's take the cruciferous veggies, for example, right? Many of us do not like broccoli, but maybe we like cauliflower. Now cauliflower seems to be the biggest thing. Cauliflower rice, you can add it to smoothies. It makes things thicker and creamier. People are discovering all of these wonderful things, but cruciferous veggies, we probably have heard before, steam them. The thing is, when we submerge them in water, all of the nutrients leach out. All right. So the one way that we want to work with cruciferous veggies specifically is to steam them, but we don't need to steam them for very long. 5 minutes is so much. That's it. And you're steaming them only, you only put them in the basket when the water boils. And so maybe that's something people know, maybe they don't know. But the way we extract all of the healing and the heart healthy enzymes and nutrients from cruciferous veggies is by waiting for the water to boil and then placing them in the steam basket. 5 minutes tops, and that's it. You don't need anything more. And when it comes to things like garlic and onions, we tend to chop them up and we'll stir fry them and so on. But you've probably seen your elders use a what you call it, a mortar and pestle for garlic, and you're probably saying why. I grew up seeing my the elders around me take the knife, the back of the knife, and smash the garlic. What the smashing does and the pulverizing, even if you were to take let's onions and so on, you place them in a blender, the smashing actually activates some of the healing properties that are lost if we just cook them, like if we just chop them and cook them, whether we stir fry or we steam. You have to crush them to activate those healing enzymes first, and you can cook them after. If you just chop again, they won't be activated. And so those are some of, those are just some of the intricate details. When it comes to raw, so raw food, as I stated before, is a type of food that does not require a lot of cooking or any cooking at all. If you expose the food to any heat, it would be a dehydrator or sun drying. And when I started consuming raw foods, I thought that that was the optimum. And I'm saying no, it's not the optimum, not from a medical standpoint, but from experience. It's not the optimum because, again, if your gut is not balanced and your microbiota is not exposed to or doesn't have a wide variety of enzymes to help break down foods, you will be gassy, you'll be uncomfortable, and your body will not be taking in or assimilating all of the vitamin K and the calcium, let's say kale, for example, right? That's one I know many people complain about when it comes to the discomfort. Stripping away the stems, it's important to do so and not always chopping them up because the stems are very herbaceous, they're very hard to digest, but they can be blended and juiced. So you can use them in that way. You can pulverize them in the food processor and add them to a burger that you bake or you cook. But you can strip the stems away and use the leaves and marinate them. So marinating is another food process that can be helpful when it comes to aiding our bodies to breaking down foods that are raw, specifically greens. And in order to marinate, one of the things you need to just make sure you have is you have no fat, because that you add the fat after. You make sure you have either vinegar or some sort of acid, and you have a salt in there too, and that salt can be an aminos or it can be pink salt, sea salt of your choice. But that marinade must include that vinegar or some sort of acid to break down food acid, right? To break down the greens. So those are some of the tips and so on. There's so many, but those are some of the things that we need to consider when it comes to transitioning and consuming plant-based foods. Always, always important to think about which foods your body digests easily, which ones are, kind of give you gassy feelings or just this discomfort. Or if you eat it, you may find that you have low energy after. That's an indication that maybe there is the glycemic index is too high. And you want to make sure that you're paying attention to that, because foods that have very low fibers but high sugar content will go directly to the bloodstream much faster, and you may find yourself feeling lethargic after. So just paying attention to the foods you consume. And keeping a journal has been helpful for me. And those who I work with, I know sometimes it's hard, like, oh my gosh, I haven't got a journal again. But it's something as simple as opening your Google Docs and just putting, May 2nd, May 3rd, and, jotting down, this is what I ate, this is how I felt. Putting it in a spreadsheet also is helpful too, because you want to pay attention to that. And if you have children, you want to pay attention to how the foods affect them as well. Maybe you'll find again, after eating this type of combination, they're very lethargic or they're super energized. Well, maybe you want to decide on when you're going to give them the food that makes them lethargic because you're using it strategically. I don't know. But also which foods make them have like lots of discomfort. Cherries are a food I know young people love. And, it's easy, you pop it in fruits. It's a fruit that's very sweet too.
Right.
Children like it. The color gets all over their hands, so I guess they're fascinated with that too. But cherries can cause flatulence and extreme gas pain. So yes. So making sure that you soak cherries or making sure that you don't have an allergic reaction is important too. That's part of the allergic reaction. When you're gassy and you're flatulent, that's something that you have to pay attention to.
So as you know, grocery stores, restaurants are selling plant-based meats. What should someone look out for when it comes to ingredients to that? Because as you know, most restaurants such as Burger King has a plant-based burger, which one of the fillers is actually from animals, the leftovers from animals. So what should people look out for when it comes to that?
I think recently they said that they have altered it and it does not include any of that anymore. And I also read initially there was another big company that came out and they were speaking about silks from spiders or something in there somewhere. I don't know. I think some of that has been debunked, so to speak. But at the same time, um, when you're looking for plant-based items like alternatives, I'm going to be very opinionated. Make your own. That's it. Make your own. I think there's a lot of fascination right now around all of the alternatives because it's so easy to run into the store and just grab up the packet. And I understand we're all working, we're all functioning and moving. We're high level humans at this stage to a certain degree because we're doing a lot in one day. So it's very difficult to actually prep foods from scratch every day. So because we have the refrigerator as a preserver, I think it's helpful to go back to what, at least what I used to see my mother do, prep a large meal for one, on one day that can last several days, and then you mix and match the foods that you consume. A great meat alternative would be walnut. Walnut is one of the foods that, and I'm going to have a blog post coming up and a podcast coming up that really delves into the different nuts and which ones are best. Walnuts is amazing. It's excellent for the brain, has a great balance of omega-3s and 6s, great fats for our bodies. If you have elders around, utilizing it to make uncut meat is absolutely one of the best alternatives that you can create for yourself. If you are into beans and lentils, those can be utilized again to create some sort of meat or burger or so, and I'm using those terms because we all, when you say burger patty, everybody kind of knows what you're talking about, but you can use those. They make excellent alternatives, again making sure that we go back to soaking the items properly and making sure that we change the water. And you're probably saying, well, why am I paying attention to those things? Beans can have lectins that will actually cause your body to feel depleted. So instead of building them up, it feels like it's breaking it down because of certain toxins that are there if we're not soaking beans properly. So I'm saying, yes, work with your own alternatives and make your own, but then there's a science behind food and understanding how to work with certain foods properly so that it is bringing you to an optimum state of wellness. It is healing. Your body can assimilate it and it isn't just going back out as waste. Yeah.
Right.
Another thing, if you don't have that option because you don't have the time, one of the best things to do is to look for those alternatives that actually have the least ingredients. Make sure your ingredients are easy to read and things that you understand. Try if it says titanium dioxide, go in the next direction. Don't even think about it, right? If there are gums in there that are, and I'll say this, do research as well, because sometimes we see the word gum and we think, oh my gosh, this is some wax from somewhere on the, it's just no good for us. But gum arabica is an actual natural gum that's utilized. Um, I know there was conversation around another emulsifier not too long ago. I think it was agar.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was agar. Agar is an old sea moss gel. It's a type of seaweed. So if you and some industries actually use it to create the petri dishes, what they use to recreate what you call it, like bacterial colonies and things like that. And so I remember being exposed to the argument around it before, and I said, well, no, what is this thing? Because I hear everyone talking about it, and I when you say emulsifier, I'm like, okay, that's what kind of helps the milk, if you're because you would see it in certain types of brands of milk.
Right.
That's what kind of gets it to be smooth and silky, and it keeps the fat and the other things together so that they don't separate. So I decided to look and I realized no, agar is actually extracted from a type of sea moss. There's a specific species that they use and pull from it. So it isn't necessarily a bad thing for us. So again, it's research and not just going with the crowd and going with what everyone says. Oh my gosh, you're trying to kill us. Oh my goodness. Sometimes that's, that's just people not knowing what ingredients are and what types of food are derived from natural foods. So again, do your research. There are some companies that I think are utilizing the trend of natural foods and plant-based foods. Don't let them make a buck off it. That's what I'm going to say. I know we want to have the same, let's say cheeses, for example. Don't let them make $15 off of you every 2 weeks.
Right.
Don't do it. Leave those products and try to make your own. So you're probably saying, well, how do I make my own? If you want to make a cheese, you can actually utilize cashews to make a cheese. You can use walnuts again. You can try to use almonds. Even chickpea is an option when it comes to creating cheese. You have to combine it with an acid, including a bit of nutritional yeast is helpful. A nutritional yeast actually adds some vitamin B's that we are not, if you're vegan or vegetarian, if you're vegan specifically, you won't have access to it just through the plants that you consume. So you have to make sure that you're consuming some of it there, or making sure you get in mushrooms, or just consuming some of the, probiotics. So
Mm.
maybe you take a probiotic that's vegan based, and that helps to supply you with certain levels of B's, specifically B12 for women who want to become pregnant, and are pregnant. You want to make sure you have those. But yeah, there's so much. I could keep going and going and going when it comes to selecting alternatives. Um, but yeah, that's my overall message is try make your own. And there is a plethora of information out there when it comes to just types of food. Lots of coaches, people like yourself, people who
Right.
know and have been on the journey before and can offer that support and that help. Because again, I'm saying there's a plethora of information, but a lot of it too is false, and
Oh,
it
yeah.
can lead you. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, people, we want to have huge debates around sea moss versus seaweed and everything. And I'm like, do you even know how many species of seaweed exist? Come on now. Come on. Are we
Right.
gonna
Right.
do this?
Right. Yes. Right. So speaking of Sovereign Eats, how'd you come up with the name, and kind of tell us about the services and the products you provide. And you also have Sovereign Eats podcast. So can you tell us about that?
I went through a little process. I shifted initially. We were Kushite raw foods because
Mm,
at that point, Kemet was a huge part of, just my journey and exploring just some of the spiritual systems through, I guess, West African and also Kemetic spiritual systems. So that sort of influenced me. And then I started to explore Kush, Indus Kush itself. So
mhm,
I decided to use the name Kushite Raw Foods. But I transitioned, and my mate helped me to select a, a a brand or a title or a name, so to speak, that's very much aligned with the idea of sovereignty, the idea of being able to function free of the puppeteer's strings, so to speak, right? So thinking about that, and then thinking about being able to identify and have a control, full control over what we eat and how we eat is strategic when it comes to, just providing services and making sure that there's a name that delivers the idea behind the services and, the intention when it comes to supporting or helping anyone. Um, and the idea of sovereign eats is not just, can I have control over what I select and what I put in my mouth, but do I have full control over what I grow and I plant? And so eventually we'll get there. We're not there yet, but initially it's the idea of just, being able to control the mind, being able to control what is in your homestead, being able to control what you prepare for your family, because I am a woman. So if I'm a woman, I'm thinking about how do I support family. I have to. I mean, I know right now there's a huge debate over what we should be doing as women. I'm sorry. I am one of the women who understand the position as culture keeper and delivering that culture that's given to me from my mate. So part of that is to support the homestead. And not talking about myself because I don't have children, but I'm talking about all women who are in the home and are supporting. We need to have that handle or control over the food and the food in the home. And food is not just the physical food you eat, but there's spiritual
right,
edification as well
right.
too. That's food. That's spiritual food. But yeah, Sovereign Eats is really about offering that support to anyone, whether again it's through mental support, it's physical support, it's actually showing you the how to transition. Sometimes there's simple things that if you haven't done it, if you haven't sat in the kitchen and actually created something from scratch, I know sometimes there's a lot of anxiety around, oh my gosh, what would this thing look like? How would it taste? Am I doing it right? And I like to be able to stand next to someone and say, yeah, however you do it is gonna be good.
Right.
You put that feminine energy into it. Trust me, it's gonna be good. But yeah, so apart from that, we also offer coaching to support families as well as those who are maybe single and they need to transition but they're not sure how to. So we offer that transition coaching. Sometimes it can be one-on-one or and a one-off, right? Just a single consulting session. But we also have sessions that last for 3 months because maybe you're transitioning and you want it to be permanent. So that type of coaching opportunity offers you the ability to become independent after 3 months. Guaranteed, promise you. You won't, like you're not gonna slip, there won't be any slipping back and so on. And we work with the idea that your brain just needs about two strongs, meaning not weak but strong, but we call it weeks. So your brain just needs like 2 weeks to actually shift into new thinking and to break away from the patterns, whether it's of eating, of drinking, and movement, and so on. So we work with a lot of ideas around the mind and how the mind works and how the body works as well too to help you. I like to show women specifically, how the body also produces hormones. So we talk a little bit about the specific hormones that the body produces to trick you into eating. So your body literally fighting with your the ideas that you create in your mind, like, no, I want to be healthier. Your body literally wants to see, listen, we're not getting the same amount of calories. It starts to fight. It produces hormones that actually increases or ramps up your desire to eat. So we work through that knowledge as well to help. And the way I deliver some of that information is through the podcast, the Sovereign Eats podcast. It was a very shaky start for me because I am not accustomed to just talking to no one. I'm just like talking to a screen. So if you listen, I have to laugh at myself now. If you listen to the very first episode, it's kind of like, who are you talking to? But yes, the podcast is a platform that allows me to offer whatever knowledge that I have gathered so that everyone can grow and heal and move themselves and family toward wellness. Toward wellness. That's I look at my community and I see that we're struggling. We're struggling with food addiction, huge struggle. Obesity is rampant. And I'm probably preaching to the choir, like you see it.
Yeah,
Right? That
it's definitely a public health issue.
It is.
Yeah.
It is, and there must be more advocacy around offering that knowledge about food, and not just. I mean, I think I spoke on several different areas or topics that influences food. You know, it's not just it's knowledge too. So and that knowledge has to be made available. It can't just be, oh, the FDA said this. No, there has to be a body of knowledge or a place where you can go to research and become, knowledgeable about food and how it functions in our body. And there is a difference. Dr. Layla Africa, his book talks about the difference between the melanated versus a non-melanated person and their diet. And I think it's important to pay attention to that too, because if you and I are both melanated women, but our body will actually assimilate, let's say, vitamin D very different, all right, or vitamin C very differently, just because of our biology, because of the lineage that we come from. Maybe it's where we lived for the first 10, 15 years of our life. Your body will literally digest food differently based off of that. So if there's a variation between you and I, and we're both women, then there is variation between those of different races and ethnicities. And that's this based on location and other things to biology as well. So I think a lot of that information needs to be shared. And I don't think it's just Google, because we could say, okay, that information is out there. But again, a lot of it, I remember I was working with a holistic practitioner, and he said to me, no, and he's a doctor and he worked in a lab working on food and developing food. And he said to me, no, 80 something percent of what is Googled online when it comes to health and the medical industry, a lot of it can be questioned. Oh, yeah. A lot of it can be questioned. So, yeah, and I might be wrong with that percentage right now. He may have been wrong, but his point was a lot of it is pseudoscience, and so we have to be careful.
Yeah, because if you Google, you having a stomach ache, and of course, one of the things it says is it could be cancer, and your mindset goes to that thing of, oh my God, I got cancer. And it's like you miss all the other things that's listed because we always tune in to the worst things.
That's true. We do tuning into the worst things, right? Yeah, I think I know which one you're talking about. Yeah. I think I know exactly which one you're talking about. That can lead you astray.
Yeah,
it can lead you astray.
Yeah.
As opposed to going to a health practitioner,
right?
Getting your blood work, not just getting full blood work, so you can actually see. And that might not tell you what's going on with your stomach, but it's going to definitely tell you if you're lethargic constantly, if you have brain fog all the time. You're going to see which areas that you're low in or high in when it comes to nutrients and vitamins and things like that. So that's part of the work I think we have to do when we go to the practitioner. We have to say, I want blood work, and we have to be willing to do the research and ask them questions. What does this mean? When I see my blood work is saying this, what does it mean? If someone says you're pre-diabetic, it can't just be, oh my gosh, you're pulling out your hair now, oh my goodness. Well, you've been I'm gonna tell you, if you are told you're pre-diabetic, you've been pre-diabetic for a while.
Right.
It's just, they're only telling you it now because your levels are coming close to the red flag that someone told them they're required to inform you about this pre-diabetic condition when it gets into the range. But you've been probably sitting in the range for a long time, maybe all your life. And so looking at blood work and asking questions can become one of the first ways that we can start interacting with how to support our body. And I hope what I'm saying is helpful and valuable.
Because the thing of it is, one thing that, we don't do is go to the doctor, because one of the things, I don't want to pay the high copay. I don't want the expense and things like that. And sometimes the result of that is you end up with cancer, you're in stage 4, and it's too late. So would you rather pay the little copay now, or you have this large expense of when you're in stage 3 and 4? Those are the things we don't ask questions, because, sometimes we feel like they're more educated and I don't want to question them. But if you don't know, ask. So that's one of the things that we have to overcome is, no question is a dumb question. If you don't ask the question, then you're being dumb because you don't know. And I think that's something that we have to overcome, especially in our community, our culture. We are the worst because we won't go. And that's we're like, I'm not going, I'm going to drink, some type of tea or something. So, I mean,
I think it's really helpful to, and I don't know why that is a thing. I hear a lot of conversation around overcoming generational curses.
Right.
And so as we speak, I hear that echoing as we speak, because that's part of the generational curses. And generational curses are present because our foreparents embraced manners and mannerisms and behaviors that were detrimental to them, and they continue to hold on to it. And so in some way, there are many of us who continue to do the same. Right. And so, we could talk about releasing generational curses, but if we're doing the same things, right, and not empowering ourselves, and I'm not saying our foreparents did not empower, we're an evolution of them. So if children are an evolution, so I'm a child of my parents and my foreparents, so I must evolve, right? But that evolution can happen without knowing, but what were the past medical history? What are some of the medical issues that afflicted my lineage? What were some of the things that they had to deal with? And of course, physical, I'm saying a lot of things like physical disabilities and diseases also are dawn in the spirit. So this is not just a dialogue around food and the physical body, but it's also it's a spiritual conversation too.
Yeah. Definitely that, because, you hear so many people say, well, I'm gonna die of something anyway, but, okay, why do you have to shorten your life? Because, you don't want to change. And a lot of meats cause inflammation in your body, which most people don't realize. And chicken is one of the ones. But a lot of people say, I'm not giving up chicken, but you rather have inflammation and swelling in your body and your joints, which leads to arthritis. That doesn't make sense. So one of my questions for you is, how do you provide health and wellness for yourself?
How do I provide health and wellness for myself? Before I take that, but do we have a time constraint?
No.
Before I jump into that one, how do I provide health and wellness for myself? chicken. You mentioned chicken, and all I could hear is Levitical law. Levitical law. Are you familiar with the Levitical laws?
Yes.
Yes. Chicken is one of those foods that we're not allowed to eat. And I'm not here to say, oh, the Levitical law. I'm not here to follow the laws to say, oh, you can't eat this, can't eat this, leave the shrimp alone. I'm not here to say that. But I am gonna say it because we have, again, the universe and the creator created a balance for us that we could not even fathom. And so when you say, okay, eating certain foods leads to us acquiring certain diseases, then you have to say, well, that's probably why it was, not on the, you know, green light list, right?
Right.
That's one of the reasons why it was a food that we should not be eating. So I definitely think there's a lot that we have to think about when it comes to our habits, when it comes to consuming food and overcoming just the desires of the flesh and wanting something because we think it tastes good. The truth is, we grew up seeing parents and forefathers and family members eating it. So naturally, you think, okay, this is the right thing to do because they're my mentors. They're the first teachers. So you think, okay, that's what I'm supposed to eat too, and you don't necessarily question it. And so eating that way over a period of time creates patterns in the subconscious mind. So that becomes, that's how we do. That's how we do. That's how I live. That's me.
Right.
So, just as you said, chicken, it brought me to Levitical law, and it brought me to that idea that yes, we have patterns in our own eating habits, but we're also breaking patterns of our lineage or family lineage that has been detrimental for sometimes, for some of us, decades, generations, right? So very important to think about, how do I provide wellness for myself? It's questioning. So that's why I shared about the idea about, that breaking generational curses, and, us scrutinizing our lineage and how they eat and how they function in terms of health and nutrition. Um, that's one of the ways I question. I ask, why is this a lot when it comes to food? And my body too. There's certain conversations I don't know if we could have here, but yes, I want to see whatever comes out of me. I want to see it. I want to know what it is. I want to know why it is the shade, color, size, heftiness, because there is knowledge in that. There's knowledge, there's knowledge in knowing it, and I'm talking about whether you're a woman or a man. If you're a woman, there are many other things
Right.
we could talk about too, and those colors and those smells are critical, so we
Okay.
can know how to function and move. Maybe you don't need that extra nutritionalist this strong. Maybe what you need is some yellow dark tea for the next 2 strands every night so that you can get yourself back on track. Maybe you need some pineapple juice with ginger and some clove so that you can get yourself back on track. Maybe you need some turmeric, ginger, orange juice so that you can get yourself back on track. And I'm sharing those because those are some of the ways that I keep myself or administer to myself, you know, when it comes to health and wellness. I am not, you're probably going to, you're probably expecting me to say, okay, I juice a lot. I'm over juicing. I'm over juicing. I'm sorry. I no longer, I'm not, I enjoy juices, but I don't juice every day, right? I think I've gone months without juicing at this point because I don't even consume breakfast. I'm not a heavy eater of foods in the dawning, right? That morning period for me, it allows my body, and if we're looking at the circadian cycles, that's something I try to pay attention to. The morning period is a time for eliminating. So you have to make sure if you are eating something for breakfast, I'll share with your audience, fruit is the best, fruit is the best. And what it will help to do is to open up the appetite. So you want to eat midday instead of eating in the night, instead of eating your heaviest meal at night, because fruit, berries, and so on, they open up the appetite a lot. So yeah, I kind of restrict my diet too. I try to eat once a day, but that doesn't always happen. I try to fast as much as I can when I have the opportunity to. So we observe Ramadan and the fasting during that time. So that's something that I observe, and I equate it to intermittent fasting. So it helps to reduce weight, and you get to flush a lot of water weight and so on. Um, how else do I administer to myself when it comes to health and wellness? You know, I I think I said it before, like I try to make everything myself, just so that I can pay attention to what goes into it. I know what the ingredients are. Um, and if I know what the ingredients are, then I control how sweet, how salty, how spicy something is, or how nutrient dense it is. Because for me, I will take something as simple as a shake or a smoothie. And if I want to make the smoothie, I would include probably spirulina. And then you'll find me, I'll add some maca in there. And I'll take the tea from ashwagandha, or the tea that I boil from maca, and I'll pour it in instead of just pouring in water. So that there are layers and layers of superfoods, you know, in whatever it is that I'm making or drinking. Um, I utilize a lot of spices. I'm from the spice isle of the Caribbean, so I utilize a lot of spices. And I want to ask you that question as well. What do you do? I know you're interviewing me, but I really wanted to know how you administer to yourself.
Well, health and wellness for me is basically I definitely listen to my body when I'm tired. I had COVID last year, so I still have symptoms from it where I have chest pain, and inflammation of the walls of my chest. I have fatigue. Sometimes I have brain fog, things like that. So I definitely have to pay attention. And when I need to rest, I rest. I work out, I take walks, drinking water, drinking, doing vitamins and smoothies and things like that. And sometimes I get tired of making smoothies because when you said juicing, I was like, yeah, I get tired of making smoothies. But, implementing some type of fruits and vegetables to help me continue vitamin K, vitamin C, vitamin A, those type of things, potassium into my diet. So, health and wellness to me is definitely a mindset. That's definitely one important thing is your mindset, your thoughts, because sometimes we get extremely bored and what happens, we eat because we're bored. So just being aware of my thoughts. Another thing, is just taking that time, even meditating, even, just praying, things like that. That's what health and wellness means to me. And sometimes, I think we get so caught up with trying to feel guilty about taking time for ourselves. And I think that's important. You shouldn't feel guilty because you can't pour into anyone else, but you're not pouring into yourself. So that's what health and wellness means to me is pouring into you.
Well, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. There's I think was it January or March? January, February, sorry. I don't know. What did I went from January to March. February we did I think it was a
Mm-hmm.
self-care month of the self-care, and I didn't really show anyone how to, but it was just about, are you making your own products
Right.
and administering to yourself, and making your own lotion and
Mm-hmm.
anointing yourself, so to speak, right?
Right.
um so when you talk about just wellness being that expanse of being able to pour into yourself, there's so many ways to pour. You spoke on you mentioned meditation. That's an excellent practice at the beginning of the day, and even um toward the end of the day, to seal off our day, because we put ourselves in a place where we want to feel guilty, or make ourselves feel guilty. Some people don't sleep
Right. Right.
because Some people are saying and that message is for myself too. But
Yes.
there's this constant feeling like you can't take a moment, right, to rest. And there's so much that happens during our sleeping and our resting at night, not just the body physically rejuvenating, but there are parts of our spirit that needs, support and healing and so on too during that restful period. So, you mentioned that meditation, it made me think of resting, and making sure that we put aside time to actually sleep and we're not sleeping, just in random places and catching a sleep wherever we can, but we have routines. We have a routine where we go into a space, the lighting is different. It's not bright white fluorescent lighting that disrupts your brain from identifying it's nighttime. Just yeah, there's a lot. Some of those things are I struggle with though. I will admit that resting and taking long periods of rest. And I don't know if your audience experiences that, at least for those who have transitioned to raw or plant-based and they're eating light, you find that you probably have so much more energy. 1 o'clock will come and you're still up and you're still moving, you're still going. And it's not because you're trying to fuss to do things, it's just because you have the energy and you can't rest. And even in those cases, we have to find a way to put ourselves down. And I think, the mention of meditation is helpful because it does help to wind you down and get to a place where you can slow your breathing, control your breathing, and the breath work will help to lead you into like a more sedated, calm place for resting.
So, how can someone find you for services and products?
Um, so our website is www.sovereigneats.com. You can find us there. So when you get there, because I'm about to say, okay, you'll find this and that and that, and I don't need to tell you that. But we're in the process of including additional resources like infographics, and I will upload before the end of this strong a PDF that kind of goes through a 21-day Ramadan detox that you can apply to any 21 days throughout the spring or summer. It's always helpful. It's a mono meal fruit plan included with lots of tips and so on to help. It's a PDF, so you can kind of download it if you like. But again, our website, you can find us on Instagram. On Instagram, I like to do Sovereign Sundays, and my Sovereign Sundays, I've transitioned it to the YouTube channel. So on Sundays at 6 p.m., we go live, and there's always some sort of conversation or dialogue around topics that are important to those who listen. Sometimes people DM me and say, okay, can you share about this topic or that topic? And I pull out the information, I put it together, and I share. I started doing motivation. I think it's midday motivation on not I think it's midday motivation on Tuesdays and Thursdays because I realized that we all could use a break during the day in the middle of the tasks. We're also very task driven and task oriented. That sometimes pulling away from work, whether we're remote or we're out in the workplace working face to face, doing the midday motivation has helped people get to kind of break and come over and share their thoughts and have discussions, and then they jump back on. Sometimes we are on there 20 minutes, sometimes an hour. Those who want to stay longer, stay. Those who have to leave, leave. But there are all those different ways. The services that we offer on the, I'll jump back to the website. The services we offer on the website, we offer a couple of herb products and blends. One of them being connected to a non-for-profit called Red Wrap. And so I created a herb blend around just the idea of Red Wrap, so that organization actually supports women who live in shelters. They offer sanitary napkins and other hygiene specific items to those who don't have or are in need. So I really like I like the mission and so on. So I decided, okay, I'll make a herb blend just around the idea of red wrap and what they stand for. You can also find the transition coaching services there. You can find the there's a workshop, a and walnut pate workshop that's available on the website. We also have a family package and a one-on-one package as well too. And if you were to find us go to Facebook. I actually did a 15-minute free consultation on Facebook. So those who can find me and they find me on Facebook, you'll be able to connect that way. Just, for those people who have been looking, if you have been looking, you found me there, you'll be happy to find that gem. If you come across the gem, use it. I'll be happy to sit down and talk to anyone and just share um, based on any questions that you have. I think that's it. That's about it. I don't think I'm on any other platform. TikTok, but I haven't been using TikTok that much.
Well, I thank you so much for joining me and providing so much information and knowledge. Because again, people are considering making that transition. It's that question of plant-based, what's the difference, things like that, things to look forward to. And, I think you really dropped some knowledge, especially when it comes to cooking in the home, opposed to just grabbing something quick. So thank you for that. And I would definitely love to have you back in the near future.
Okay, I'm happy. I'll be happy. I wish we can collab. Maybe we can do a live together or something.
Okay,
That would be
definitely,
cool. So let
definitely.
me know. Thank you for having me and opening up your space to me. I really appreciate that. I'm sorry I cut you off.
That's okay, no problem. So, um, again, this is LaJune Singleton with LaJune Singleton LLC. Definitely please go to her website and check her out. When it comes to the vegan life, if you're about to start, if you have questions, she will be the person that you will get in contact with. And again, be open to new things and changing your mindset. So until next time, I'm LaJune. Thank you.